Hi, everyone. I wanted to let you know, which I think you already do, that this is being recorded, just in case you're, you arrive late or you come, you have to leave early. It's okay. It will be posted and it'll be available for you to view. Thank you for attending and coming in. I see that we have quite a few people already in here. Exciting. We will have a Q&A at the end of our session. So if you want to put some questions in the chat, you're more than welcome. Jessica and I are presenting together. So Jessica will kind of be watching the chat while I'm talking, and then I'll watch the chat while she's talking. We're going to get started and get you out of here at the time that you expect to get out of here. Thank you again for coming. All right, let me put it in presentation mode. All right, so tonight we're talking about you. We're talking about your opportunities. We're hopeful that you will feel more motivated or more excited about the potential that's out there for you. The title of our presentation is Navigating the Professional Landscape, How to Be Prepared for the Job Market as a Woman of Color. Woman of color is anybody who would not be considered Caucasian or white. My name is Diana Robles, and I'm a professor, full-time faculty in the Department of Child and Adolescent Studies. And I'm also field work and study abroad coordinator for the department. And with me is Jessica Dinh, who is a wonderful colleague as well, and she'll introduce herself in more detail in the second part of the presentation. All right. So in order to do this presentation, I did a little bit of research because I felt like it was important to really give you some data and some information. And then I always start by telling you, hey, I'm you, just because I have master's degrees or whatever I have, it doesn't really change the fact in the matter is I'm a woman, I'm Latina, I'm a mixed Latina, so I have Mexican and Guatemalan in my background. And I did the same path you did, but I did it over 25 years ago. So that's why Jessica's here, because she's more current. And mentoring was one way, to really feel supported. Funny thing was, many, many years ago when I was in college, there were not a lot of women mentors. There were a lot of male mentors. And my first mentor was Dr. Blanton. That's why I wrote his name there. He was the chair of the department that I got my undergrad degree in. I got my undergrad in health studies or health and safety studies. At that time, that was the health science of that time. And he was an African-American man, really, interesting, had an interesting background. He took me under his wing and he taught me a lot about being, an academic, of being present and asking questions and not being afraid and not underestimating myself and knowing that I was smart. And, he was a male, so it was kind of interesting to have that kind of a mentor. It didn't really, for me, it really didn't click that he was guiding me, but he was. And thankfully, he gave me the sort of the security blanket to go on and get a master's degree. He's like, you could do this. Why not? And he was so determined to see me finish that. So you grab on to whoever you can and as many people as you can. So there are a lot of programs available. There's Project Upgrads, there's the Office of Graduate Studies, there's the Palante Fellowship Program. There's so many possibilities. Thankfully, Cal State Fullerton is very much committed to giving you, a mentor if you don't have one, but also the guidance to go on to grad school. In your case, you're already in grad school, go on to a PhD program, go on to medical school, dental school, wherever you want to go. I wanted to go into social work, but I didn't really know that at the time. At the time, I thought I might go into law school. So the way I found my mentor was back then, I went to a phone booth and I pulled the phone book out of the bottom of the phone booth. They have the phone book. And I, instead of Googling like you would, I went through and looked for women Latina women who were attorneys. So I could maybe talk to one and see if this was even an area for me. And I found somebody. It took me several because I called and then they weren't available. They didn't have a number that was working, whatever. Finally, Ana Noriega, that was her last name, answered her own office, her own law office phone. She actually picked it up. She says, yeah, my secretary's out today, so I'm answering phones. And I'm like, oh, well, I want to know a little bit about law. And she's like, you do? Why do you want to know about law? I said, because I might go into law school. She goes, oh, you need to come with me. So she invited me to her house to go with her to her job as a pro bono. She was also doing pro bono work, and she was a judge pro tem for the LA Superior Court. And she said, come with me. I mean, she could have been a serial killer, but I still went with her anyway. And I met her at her house. She said she had a red BMW parked in the front. So I'm like, okay, well, that's true. And out come 3 little girls, her daughters. And they were, that morning rush, trying to get them out of the house, trying to get them fed, trying to get them clothed. And she's like, all right, you guys have to get out of here because we're leaving. So the carpool gets there, the kids leave, and her and I get in her little car and we go to the Superior Court. And I followed her all day. And then I found out more about law. And at the end of the day, I got back to her house. We had a glass of wine and she said, so do you want to go to law school? And I said, absolutely not. There was just no way. I'd figured it out just by a day of watching what she was doing. It was just too black and white for me. And she actually told me if she had repeated her career, she would not have gone into law. So that was enough for me. So I found someone and I took a chance. I hope that you will take my story and think about who you can reach out to get some support. So never assume things, always move forward. That's kind of my motto. Don't ever think that you can't do something. Allow your family to support you and know that where you came from made you who you are today. So even in my poorest of moments as a child, I don't forget those things because that tells me and reminds me that I was, not where I was supposed to be. And I did get there. So keep thinking about that. Don't let those voices in your head take over. Don't let the imposter syndrome start impacting you and you thinking you don't have the abilities or why am I here? I shouldn't, I barely made it. I barely passed that test. Who cares? Just crush it. Just get in there and do what you need to do. Because really, college, the university setting, it's not always about only intelligence. It's mostly about diligence. Get it done, do the work hard, and be the one that shows up on time, be early, be the one that really wants to be there. For me, the future is you. So you're going to be the elevator for the next person. So develop mentoring support. Do things that get you and your colleagues and your friends and your future, allies, some mentoring support. So I have this website that I think is really useful. And I feel like it is a good one for us, not us right now, but for us to explore in general. It's called Raised Women. And their first quote is just so impactful. There are more men named John in positions of leadership across America than there are women in leadership roles, period. And this website's goal is to change that. And they match women of color with female leaders. And mostly they do this for fields that are more business and art related than it is in fields maybe in social services or therapy or counseling or that kind of field. So I think we need more of this. We just need it to be available to all majors and all career paths. Okay, then the other one is some good mentoring programs for Latinas. If you're a woman of color Latina, or if you're not and you still connect with being either raised in an area that you felt very connected to Latinos or Latinx in general. There's 16 mentorship programs listed here, and you can go through them and see if maybe one of those might connect for you. And now with Zoom, you obviously can do things even without being present physically. So look through this. I actually gave the PowerPoint to Project Upgrad, so they're going to post it as well. All right, so again, it's making sure you're out there and you're helping yourself and others. So what does the landscape look like? Race and gender continue to create divergent and uneven outcomes for women of all races. So the data is a little bit sad, but it doesn't mean it has to stay this way. Result of factors including but not limited to motherhood penalties, gender discrimination, occupational segregation. Women are now making 79 cents for every dollar a man earns, but Black women get only 64 cents on the dollar and Latinas get only 54 cents on the dollar. So how do racism and sexism impact women of color in professional settings? It impacts them profoundly in things like affecting them adversely in occupations that are still stifled with leadership opportunities. So there's not a lot of leadership options, ongoing persistence of specific forms of sexual harassment, and subtle but pervasive doubts about your competence, your intelligence, your skills that are completely unrelated to your actual performance, which then makes you feel sort of doubtful of yourself, like, am I really this able to? One of the things I always say is read what business reads. Brookings.edu has some really good data and also some really good information. And that's where I got a lot of the data that I just read to you. And I wanted to show you the website so you see what it looks like. They have a lot of information for women in the workplace in general. And they talk a little bit about the 19th Amendment, because that's when women were given the right to vote and given more rights that women had to fight for so long, and we're still fighting. So we do need to keep thinking about that and looking at this. So you can go through this website, look at the history, get more details really about women in the workforce. And I'm not going to go through all of it, but I just wanted to show you this. I have another link to the Brookings.edu that also has data on podcasts and different kinds of things that they provide for us. So it's a really good website. Preparation and a game plan. So like I said, women in general are at a disadvantage from the get-go. So preparation is the name of the game here. So to be the best you that you can be, start at your very own, hold on a second. Okay, I missed this slide. Maybe it sounds dismal or impossible from the data I just read about the amount of money that we're making. Women of color are underrepresented in professional, high status jobs in law, medicine, academia, and business. When a woman of color makes it to those rarefied positions, be a mentor, support, pull up others, and seek out those women that are already in these positions and sort of call them out and saying, hey, I need a mentor. I hope that you're here for me, right? Some research documents ways that organizations, both in healthcare and other industries, can become more equitable. Here are the things they say. Change hiring practices so that organizations can pair with institutions that are known for training workers of color as a first step. So if we know that Kaiser, for example, employs a lot of people of color, then maybe we connect Kaiser with the University of Florida, if that connects, right? And so that we can start funneling more people into those places where there's equity and there's also more positions. Also involving managers in developing solutions and recruitment. Additionally, collecting data is so important to understand what challenges and obstacles employees are facing, particularly those from underrepresented groups. We need to know what's going on, because honestly, with the change in how the workforce and you know, just the whole general idea of recruitment has changed so significantly since COVID, we really need some new data to find out where the obstacles are. Oh, here's the one I was telling you about. So become educated. So Brookings also has these really good podcasts or videos that are already posted, essays and different talks about women at the top, women during the COVID-19 era, women advancing, just looking at the global, like story, looking at what's happening. So if you go on here, you can actually download and read through or listen to some of these really, really good podcasts by experts in the field. So I share this with you because get informed. And I know we don't have time. We're always busy. But look at this scale. This is Alice Paul, the leader of the National Women's Party. And she unfurls a ratification banner from the suffrage headquarters in the 1920s. All these women were probably super busy too, but now for them, it was a priority to make other women's rights a priority. So we need to think about the sisters that we've been riding on their shoulders and be there to make it better for the next group. You know, I'm ending my career, but you're starting your career. So one of the things I like to do is to do as much mentoring as I can, because I still have all my faculties up here and I still know what's going on, and I want to be able to give back in that way. All right, now preparation and game plan. So be the best person you can be and the best prepared person. I suggest or recommend that you start at your Cal State Fullerton Career Center. The Career Center can help prepare you. And I have the link there. So if you want to look at it and you want to actually go in there, they have a career guide. And the career guide is for major and career exploration, the job search process, resume writing. They actually have resume samples in this booklet, in this guide. They have cover letter samples and interviewing samples. And you can actually do a mock interview at the Center for Careers, because you can actually go in there and they do a whole like recording of you going through an interview. Before you start applying, research your employers, your prospective employers. Who are they? Do they align with your goals, with your beliefs? Don't just pick a place because they pay the best. I mean, that's definitely a good thing too. But first, are they in line with who you are? Because that's going to be a long investment. Unless you're planning on leaving very quickly or staying only for a few years as a stepping stone. But in general, you really have to believe in the cause and believe in what they believe in to be able to be effective. Take on internships, volunteer roles, join boards, and find mentors that are doing what you would love to be doing. So if you meet someone who says, oh, you know, I write books about cooking, and you're like, that's my thing. Ask them if you can, you know, hang out. Ask them if you can just go to one of their next trainings or just find a way to get involved. I love taking students into the classroom to teach. And I like to do that because it gives the future teacher or the future academic who wants to become a professor an experience in how to do that. So this link here gives you information on how to research employers. In the event you're not sure how to do that, they actually have a whole section, and you can meet with a specialist at the Career Center to help you with that. Don't go into an interview without knowing your employer like the back of your hand. You have to know who they are. You need to know what they are about, their philosophy, their mission statement, their goals, their, you know, what they do, why they do it. I'm going a little fast because I want to get to Jessica. The Career Center opportunities as a graduate alumni. So you do get to have access to the Career Center up to 1 year after you graduate. So if you're having trouble finding a job, a lot of people get a job before they even leave their graduate program, but many don't. My daughter is an example of that. She just finished her graduate program and she didn't get a job until about 4 months after she graduated or so. So I think, again, when you're out there kind of doing the search, don't get discouraged if you don't have something right away. Find mentors in your major, at your internships, through your courses on campus, in a professional association. Ask to join them at their jobs, their meetings, or trainings. Attend conferences in your field, walk through the resource booths, shake hands, give out business cards. I know people don't do business cards anymore, but I think at a conference, I think that's the easiest way to do it, or let them take a picture of a business card. And I will tell you that of all the things that have really helped me, because I am not quick on my feet and I am not the person who has great comebacks, one of the things I had to do was to do a 30-second elevator pitch about myself. so that I was clear about what I wanted to say to someone if I ran into them in an elevator or anywhere and I didn't have much time. What would I say about myself? Like, what would be my priorities, especially if I met someone in a field? I've gone into an elevator at a university and I didn't immediately realize, but it took me about 2 minutes, maybe. Thankfully, he was still in the elevator. It was the president of the school. Now, talk about a little stress there, right? And he right away started talking to me, and I was like, okay, I'm going to do my elevator pitch here. And I said my thing to him, and then he's like, oh, that's great. And then he got off, and I could see on his little name thing, he was, the president. So you never know who you're going to run into. It's good to be ready. So I have 2 YouTube clips that you might want to look at. The first one is a quick 5 steps, how to do a really quick, hi, my name is Diana, blah, blah, and then just kind of get right to what you want to say. And the other one is a little more detailed, and it's put together by Indeed.com, which is one of the biggest employers, companies that employs for other companies. So you may want to look at both of them. So learn about the data and how women look in corporate America, because to me, corporate America is kind of a reflection of what's going on everywhere else. So even if you're not going to go into business, but maybe you're going into, I don't know, health science, or you're going to go into business, education, or you're going to become a social worker. Those things don't sound like corporate America, but I'll tell you, corporate America is a direct reflection of what's going on, not only in financials, but also in hiring, firing, and, staying in that field. So this here, the McKinsey.com, is also a really nice website about women in the workplace and what to expect coming up. And they have a really nice podcast if you want to listen to it. They go through and they talk a lot about the things that you may be most interested in when it comes to hiring, and then subsequently promotion, because promotion is the next thing that you want to think about. And a lot of it too will be things related to negotiating for your raises, right? So the next 2 areas are about allyship and advocacy. And these links, I just tested them before we started. They're not working right this minute. It could be that their website's down for a little bit, but I love it because it's about setting up a way to have an association of mentors of women of color. And they have also a women of color P squad, power squad. I would love for us, they have one in San Francisco, but I would love for our university or our Southern California women of color to start a P squad. So think about that. I'm looking straight at Jessica. Think about that, because that could definitely be something really cool to start your very own power group. Because the only way you're going to have a game plan and have the ability to make it out there is if you have people you can call and connect with when you're not sure what to do or what's happening in that, particular job that you're looking for. All right. So that's kind of what I wanted to share with you. There's a lot more, but they gave me 1 hour, and I wanted to also have time for questions at the end. Being a motivational person for someone else is also very rewarding. So I love that you are here to listen and you're here to share. And we're really lucky because today we have a woman of color herself, Jessica Dinh. And I know her for 10 years now, and maybe a little longer than that. We're trying to remember. She's the kind of gal you go, man, she started with a lot of things in the way, a lot of things stacked against her. She's young, a single mom. She was living with her parents. She connected with mentors. She sought out support. She finished her undergraduate degree, then her graduate degree from USC. She has a master's in social work. Along the way, I have known her to move from one opportunity to another, and she's never slowed down. She's sought me many times to help her with a reference or with something, and that has told me that she does not slow down or give up. She's persevered. She's an example of strength, grit, and a woman with a lot of power, and she never believed she couldn't make it. So with us today is Jessica, and she's going to share for about 10 or 15 minutes about her life. So Jessica, are you able to do the PowerPoint? You want me to do it for you?
You could do it for me. I don't think I can.
Okay, I'm gonna just do it this way because I'm gonna look at the chat, okay?
Okay, sounds good.
All right, so here we go.
All right, everyone. Hi, my name is Jessica Dinh. So I started at Golden West College after I graduated from high school. And in my third semester at community college was when I became a mom and gave birth to my son at 19 years old. But I still kept going to school. So when he was a month old, I went right back into it and was taking a full-time 15 units a semester with the newborn. And I was able to graduate in 2013. And right after, I went to Cal State Long Beach and got a bachelor's in human development in 2016. And then in 2018, I started at USC for my Master of Social Work and a pupil personal services credential because I knew I wanted to work in schools as a school social worker. And in my undergraduate program, I did an internship for Fristers, which Diana is a board member of. And I attended that program as a teen mom when I was pregnant with my son. So I got the support from them, and then I went back and was able to give back to them by providing support to the other teen moms there. And in my master's program, I became an intern at the Garden Grove Unified School District, which is the school district that I attended and the one that my son currently attends. So it's nice to give back to my community in that way. And there you see the long lists of all the different jobs. And this is not all of them, but just all these random jobs that I had to get me through college and then afterwards. So, I mean, I've done many different things, lots of gig jobs and all of that. After I graduated from Cal State Long Beach, I did a year of AmeriCorps, and that kind of helped pay back some of my loans. So it was really helpful to do it that way. And that's where I learned that I knew I wanted to work either in like a nonprofit, supporting people in some way. But when I was at Breakthrough San Juan Capistrano, I was doing more admin work, grant writing, event planning, all those things for the organization, but I wasn't working directly with the clients. And I knew that's what I wanted to do. And so I looked into different graduate programs and I found the social work program. And I was like, yeah, that's exactly what I want to do. I want to support students. And so in the next slide, it tells me more about where I am right now. So I chose social work because it really incorporates like what I went through and all the support that I got as a teen mom, and also my passion to serve others and support others. And I knew I wanted to support students in schools because I feel like supporting students when they're young is really important. And for me, my motto is prevention is the best intervention. And so giving students the tools that they need to face the obstacles in life is really what I wanted to do. I put a quote there by Mother Teresa. It says, I alone cannot change the world, but I can cast a stone and create many ripples. And that's kind of what I want to do, is just to support students in little ways, and eventually it will help in a big way. And so that's what I did. And I put a link there for EdJoin because that's how I found my jobs in the school. I currently work for Garden Grove Unified right now as a mental health specialist, providing therapy for students from K through 12. So that link is a great resource to find any type of school jobs in California. And then I put internship because that really gave me the experience that I needed to get the jobs that I have now. So being able to work with students and provide therapy during my internship really gave me what I needed to get to where I am now. I was a clinician at a group home, And that was right when COVID happened. So I graduated in December 2019, and then 3 months later was COVID and the world shut down. And I was like, great, I don't have a job. And I didn't have a job until October of 2020 when I had, and this was 3 months after I had applied to the job. I was like, $16 an hour, residential counselor. I mean, I have a master's degree, but you know what? I need a job. And so I applied for that job. 3 months later, they called me in, went for the interview. I let them know, hey, I have a master's degree. I see that you have a therapy program here. I definitely want to work my way up to that. And the director was like, yeah, when we have an opening, we would totally love to have you there. And so I started as a residential counselor. 2 months later, they're like, we have an opening, let's get you in. And so I was like, great, working my way up. And my motivation is always like what my core beliefs are, and that's service to others. And so as long as my job is to be of service to others and support students in the way that I would like to support them with their mental health, then that's where I want to be. So yeah, with the interview process, I definitely recommend coming prepared and reading the job description, because the job description will let you know what kind of interview questions they're going to ask you. For example, if they ask you to work in a team setting, then in the interview, they're going to ask you, how do you work with conflict in a team setting? Like if you were with a team member and you guys had a conflict, how would you work with that? How would you have dealt with that in the past? So it really is in the job description. And so you really want to know that, like Diana said, back and forth, just read that, know the company, and you'll be fine in the interview. And also the interview is really for you to also interview them. So when they ask you, do you have any questions for me? Definitely come with the questions so you know that that place is a good fit for you as well. Because it does go both ways. And then for the salary, the one that I'm at, the job I'm at now is more with like a union. And so my director did tell me, if you do want to change your salary, join the union and negotiate that way. But in my previous roles, I didn't really negotiate, but I wish I did. I wish I did negotiate, because at that point I was like, I just want a job, but I could have valued myself better. So that's why eventually I moved on to different jobs where I did feel more valued. And then for the last slide, so right now, I plan to stay with the Garden Grove Unified. I just started with them, but they have a really great retirement program. And so I plan to stay with them until retirement. This is exactly where I wanted to be when I started with my master's program. So I do want to move from mental health specialist to school social worker, and just provide more support in that way. But I do have, like in the past, had struggles as like a woman of color. Like for me, growing up, it was little girls should be seen, not heard. And so I always grew up thinking, maybe I shouldn't speak up, just respect the elders, those kinds of things. And it was really hard for me in my past role when the teams were having a meeting about my students, and I wouldn't speak up. And so it wasn't until 8 months into the job that I was like, hey, this is why the student is acting this way. Maybe we could try doing these interventions to support them. And the team was just flabbergasted. They're like, wow, that was amazing advice. How come you've never spoken up before? And I was like, I don't know. Like, I didn't know if like it would make a difference. I don't know if like you would have listened to me. And so definitely my advice is to not be afraid and to just have confidence in yourself, because you've made it this far. You've had all this experience. You're working so hard in grad school. Like, you know what you're doing. And if you make mistakes, you make mistakes. But that's how we learn and we grow, is through that experience. So that would be my advice, is you got this.
Thank you so much, Jessica. What a wonderful bit of advice, not to mention your travels have not been simple. They haven't been easy. Have you found that the interview process is different now, or that you feel like it's more, you have to know more about technology than you've ever had to know before?
With technology, yeah, a little bit. Like you really, like with my job right now, I have to really know all the Microsoft Office stuff and be good with making those Google Docs and Google Drives and sharing and all those things. So you, like, if you don't know it, you'll be behind. So yeah, it is different. And I really like that you had mentioned about like getting practice with the interviews, because I'll go into an interview and then when it's done, I'll be like, oh man, I had a really good answer for that, but I didn't say it because I didn't practice. So yeah, so it's nice to have those mock interviews so you feel more prepared.
Have all your interviews been on Zoom, or have you had in-person interviews as well?
All of my interviews have been in person.
Okay. Even the one that was close to the COVID time?
Yeah.
Wow.
It was, they didn't interview until 3 months after the application because they were shut down because of a COVID outbreak. But since the job was to work directly with clients in the group home, then they had me come in directly.
Okay. Wonderful. Well, you're a perfect example of how we don't underestimate ourselves, and we shouldn't, because we have the capacity to do anything we want to do as women, and women of color are just as needed and necessary. One thing I didn't mention, and maybe this is a good time to talk about it, is having languages or multilingual is a really good benefit as well. As a woman who was born and raised in a Spanish-speaking home, I know that always did help me a little bit when it came to a job opportunity, was to mention that I had the ability to read and write in another language. So that's something also to kind of keep in mind if you feel a little bit tentative about your language, your second language, is maybe take a couple of classes so that you can get caught up on how to use it in your career. I've always been tenacious. I don't give up very easily. So I feel like that's something that everybody should have, is just the stubbornness. Like someone says, well, you're not going to be able to do that. And then I say, what do you mean I'm not going to be able to do that? So I feel like that's something everybody should have the thought in your mind. Like Jessica says, you know, now she speaks up and she says what she thinks, and people can either agree or disagree. And it doesn't really matter, because you're giving your opinion and your expertise. Anytime that you're sharing something about what you believe or what you've seen in someone, or in, you know, what you believe would be best for this organization, it's worth standing up and saying something. All right, so we've kind of reached the end of the presentation. I can definitely share a little bit more, but I wanted to see if there's any questions. And then we also have a little survey link that we're going to need you to fill out.